Aloha, welcome to the Bishop Museum's Science Never Sleeps. Today we're with Stephen Barker. He is professor of parasitology at the University of Queensland in Brisbane, and he's all the way here in Hawaii studying
ticks and fleas and other ectoparasites from New Guinea, which is a bit weird since I'm in Hawaii, but this is the place to come if you want to study ticks, ectoparasites of New Guinea because of the massive collection here.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thousands of specimens of ticks, nowhere else in the world, just here.
I'm riveted at how many ticks we have here. Oh God.
Look out, there's one crawling on you right now.
Yeah, right. So, what specifically are you looking for with looking at ticks and of Papua New Guinea?
Yeah, so we work on the ticks of Australia in particular, but because Australia is connected to New Guinea physically 20,000 years ago, but we share a common ancestry, our ticks and the New Guinea ticks, we think that we can't make sense of the evolution of the Australian ticks and their disease transmitting abilities and so on until we've looked at the whole story. And New Guinea is part of that story. So for about 20 years I've wanted to have a couple of months to immerse myself in the ticks of New Guinea, and it's pretty tricky working in New Guinea. Last time I was there I was held up at gunpoint, so I decided that I'm going to go to Hawaii and look at the stay in the cottage at Bishop Museum and use the wonderful facilities and look at the ticks that have already been collected here.
Oh, nice. So what sort of things can we get from looking at parasites of animals, and what sort of different things can we see?
Well, one of the big things that I'm interested in is host specificity. So whether a tick, a parasite, lives on just one host or whether it can feed on other hosts. And all of the diseases, infectious diseases of humankind now are actually zoonoses. They came from nature. Ebola virus, HIV, hepatitis, all these things, well, not hepatitis, but they came from wildlife. So ticks and other arthropods that bite wildlife and then bite humans are very interesting to us because you can get jumps across of parasites of parasites. So in New Guinea there's a lot of typhus. During the Second World War in particular, the troops were affected by this. That came from ticks and mites that feed on rats and were transmitting the bacteria to humans by biting. So more things are transmitted by ticks, more nasty things, than all of the other blood-sucking arthropods put together, actually. And even mosquitoes way behind.
Whoa, okay. I would have thought, with everything that was going on with mosquitoes lately, that it would have been mosquitoes, but yeah.
Well, mosquitoes are bad. There's malaria, of course, and viruses, but ticks have been around a lot longer, back to the late Cambrian probably. So there's a lot of creatures, nasty microbes that have used ticks to get from one host to another. And actually I don't see the ticks doing this. If they bite you, they're not doing this intentionally. It's an accident, right? Yeah. The real villains are the bacteria and the protozoa, the viruses, the worms that hitch a ride on the ticks from one host to another. So if they bite a lot of different species, they're potentially quite dangerous. So the flea that transmitted the Black Death, the plague, doesn't have high host specificity at all. It'll feed on anything. It'll feed on rats and humans, and that's one of the reasons it was such a devastating ectoparasite.
So have you found a lot of specificity among the ticks of Papua New Guinea?
Yeah, well, we've only been here 2 weeks, so we're still working, but there are some species, for example, this thing called Haemaphysalis papuana, not surprisingly, which seems to be on all the small mammals, but also infects humans. Indeed, it bit some of the researchers from the Bishop who are working in Hawaii. There's a few slides that say, from the collector, found on the collector during the night, and also bites dogs and horses. So this one is really feeds on anything, so it's quite dangerous. In Australia we have one that feeds on anything on the east coast, and it causes quite a lot of trouble with domestic animals and humans because it'll feed on just anything that comes along. Okay,
well let's take a look at some specimens that you've been looking at. If we can, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So you want to see the microscope or the?
Let's start with the jars.
Okay, look at the jars. So here are some. There's a whole pile of ticks in here. You can see them. They've been collected. Actually, these were collected about 60 years ago by this large, very faithful group of people from the Bishop Museum. Each tube has the ticks from one host. You can see some of the ticks at the top there. These are from wild pigs from New Guinea and the Solomon Islands and other parts of Polynesia. And they bite pigs. They're quite a problem in pigs, but they can also bite people. So there's quite potentially a lot of infectious organisms are shared between humans and pigs. And that's one of the reasons there's these taboos about pig meat in some religious groups and so on. Pigs are dangerous, and they are. There's things in pigs. So this tick is interesting. It could transmit things. Fortunately, it hasn't up to now, but it does that. So I spend my day looking at these bottles of just thousands and thousands of ticks, often very tiny little ticks. Here's another jar full of... So the Bishop Museum is outstanding because for 20 years they visited New Guinea and collected ticks and other ectoparasites. And there's no other program that's been of this size or scale. And all the materials safely here being cared for. You can see this thing's full of alcohol. Nothing's dried out. So for another 100 years, people will be able to study this material.
Fantastic. Well, you're not just in the entomology collection, right? You're also up in vertebrate zoology as well.
Yeah. So I'm trying to make connections between the entomology collection here and the vertebrates. So we've got numbers on bottles here and numbers upstairs, and trying to put the two together to figure out exactly which rat this particular flea came from, for example. Go upstairs and look at the rats, or ask the rat people up there if they can tell me which species exactly was this.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a look at something smaller on our microscope here. You guys might remember this from when I worked with invertebrate zoology. We used an apparatus set on our cell phone to take pictures on the microscope. So what we're looking at right now is a flea.
This is a flea from a rat, a Pacific rat called Rattus exulans, and around a lot of parts of the Pacific, and probably travelled with the early migrants, pioneers, Polynesian folk who were moving from one area to the other. And you've just about all the rats you find, and the nest. These fleas live in the nest of the rats more than on the rat, but they're through New Guinea, and you'd find them probably in Hawaii on Rattus exulans as well. I think that rat is here. Quite a beautiful flea, don't you think?
It is
Hadley?
gorgeous, considering I don't really like fleas or anything like that. But he also showed another really great slide of not only do we have the adult specimens, but of course we have the larval stages as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the larval stages, they only have 6 legs. So they're they trick people. They didn't trick you, I noticed, but they trick people because you could think it was an insect because it has 6 legs, but it's not an insect. It's an arachnid, more related to
Well, I had a leg up. You already told me that it was a tick, so I knew that ticks usually have 8 legs. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today.
That's my pleasure. Yeah.
And if maybe in future, since you're going to be here for a while, maybe we can check in on you and your research.
Yeah, let's talk at the end of this and I'll tell you what we found.
Awesome, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Great.
We have a question online.
Sure.
Somebody wants to know about tick larvae. Do they live off smaller species?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. That person obviously knows a bit about these things, I think. So often the larvae will live on the small mammals, and rats and bandicoots, small marsupials, and the adult stages, which can be massive, as we showed you with those pig ticks. They live on the large mammals, kangaroos in New Guinea, and this is the ticks have evolved to do this because the large stages, the female and the male, they're too big. They'll kill the small mammal if they take a blood meal. So you had these complex life cycles evolve where the larvae and the nymphs, which are small, live on small mammals, and then the adult stages live on large mammals. Now, one of the things about New Guinea is there are not so many large mammals there.
Right.
So I think the diversity of ticks is not as great as it might have been if there were more large mammals. But there are tree kangaroos. They're pretty large, but they live up trees. And there is a tick that lives just on the tree kangaroo. It was discovered by a worker and described by a worker at Bishop Museum.
But there are species specifics.
Yeah. So that's right. This guy lives just on. How it lives up a tree, I don't know, because ticks have 3. These are 3-host ticks. They get on and off their host 3 times during their life cycle. So the larvae climbs onto a host, feeds, then it drops off, molts to a nymph. The nymph climbs on, feeds, drops off again, and then climbs on as the adult. 3 times it has to find a host in its lifetime. if you're living up a tree, I don't know how they do this.
That sounds pretty sketchy.
Yeah, I don't know how they survive at all, because tree kangaroos don't live in a hollow in the tree or in a nest. That would help you, if you could live in the nest. But it beats me how the tree kangaroo tick does it. They do come down to the ground, so maybe it lives on the ground on other things. I don't know. So that's a bit of a mystery.
Well, I'm sure you'll be doing some research to find out.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I found out today was that Papua New Guinea has tree kangaroos, and that's a thing.
Yeah, there's about 10 species. These gorgeous big kangaroos that live up trees. They're the sort of ecological equivalent of monkeys.
They're gorgeous too.
They are gorgeous. Yeah, when Hollywood discovers, they're going to be a movie called Tree Kangaroo, I think.
All right.
Maybe that's a bad thing or a good thing, I don't know.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time, next Friday on Science Never Sleeps. If you're interested in finding out more about the Bishop Museum, please visit our website, bishopmuseum.org, and we'll see you next Friday. Bye.
Ciao.